Good afternoon. My name is Robert Brothers. I work for McLeod Software. We'll be talking about the digital transformation of brokerage and how we got to this point. I'll be representing the TMS side of this panel, so the transportation management systems, and talking about our process about how we keep adapting the transactional systems to support this process. And on the panel, I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about themselves as well. So, Will?
Hey, how's everyone doing? Love it. Just still here on Saturday afternoon. It's awesome. My name is Will Jenkins. I am one of the co-founders of McLeod Solutions. I focus most of my day-to-day on spinning all the plates so that they don't fall. Heavily on the carrier side of the business and training. Glad to be a part of the panel and kind of shed some light on things that we've done and stuff that we look to do in the future.
Great. Thanks, Will.
Yep.
Noah?
Hi, my name is Noam Frankel. Quick background, I'm about 35 years in operational brokerage, one of the founders of American Backhaulers, built the truckload side at Echo Global Logistics, sold a recent brokerage to TFI, and I'm the founder and CEO of FreightFriend, which is a CRM for the carrier sourcing side with advanced analytics and AI that feeds into a collaborative marketplace based on mutual friendship between parties that choose to work together. Thrilled to be here as well.
And Anthony.
Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Sutardja. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Parade, which is a technology firm focused on delivering solutions for freight brokerages to enhance their carrier relationships. Primarily, we build an intelligence and engagement layer for freight brokers so that they can more seamlessly interact with their carriers and book more freight with them.
So if this was a generational panel, see, we might have all generations represented here. So we've got 25 years at least spread between us. Well, thank you, Anthony. So I'm going to start with Anthony and talk a little bit about what does digital transformation really mean? And from the very beginning, we use these words, but what is the meaning of these words and to you?
I think digital transformation is a hot topic right now. A lot of articles about digital freight matching, Uber Freight, Convoy, and how miraculously a truck is going to get loaded onto, or a load is going to get loaded on a truck and through a button press. And I think it's just far more complex than that. There are a lot of these different processes in the customer sales cycle, the carrier procurement cycle, and for us, it's how do we provide the right technologies, or actually as the freight broker, how does the freight broker think about adjusting their processes to include technology so that they can accelerate the workflow for, if it's an RFP, do those more quickly. If it's booking freight on a spot basis, how can I analyze all the data that I have and act more quickly? So I think it's more about augmenting workforce and operating at higher KPIs, more so than a lot of the fanfare that's been going around in the media.
Thank you. No?
Yeah, I guess I would elaborate on that by saying, in my belief, it's automating the transactions that improve efficiency and the experience of the transaction for all participants, which would include the customers, shippers, the warehouses, the carrier, the driver, and the broker. And it's utilizing data to help improve decision-making and improve that experience for everybody involved. And then I think it would be enabling collaborative work between parties who choose to work together. That's how I see it.
All right. Any additional thoughts there, Will?
I would echo a lot of the same things. For us, it is figuring out which ways or which parts of our business that we can make more efficient so that our people can provide better services for their carriers and their customers. There are so many different areas of the business you can focus on, but that experience piece is important. So digging in and figuring out how we tackle that.
Great. Yeah, I'm not sure that I could add, to these three explanations or definitions outside that, we want to use the machines to automate the things that they can automate so that we can free time for the relationships that need to get built. And then hopefully the digital transformation, we can transform that conversation into a meaningful one quicker. I think that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that we're starting that conversation not at A, but maybe at C to get to the ultimate destination. So let's see. So we'll start back. Let's go the other way. Will, so how do you decide what to digitally transform in your business, and then what aspects of your business are you trying to do? And we also put in this: do you build it or do you buy it? Sort of idea.
So I'll tackle the first part of the question. If you would have asked me this July of 2017, I probably would say I have no idea, because there were so many unknowns as we started the business. Now that I look at where we are currently, and we're a much more mature business, the things that I think are the most important are finding ways to make our people more efficient so that they can be more effective faster. So if you're thinking about bringing in people with no experience, they don't know anything about the industry, how do I help them get from green to confident to effective? Anything that's going to help them do that faster, I want to do, whether it be helping our sourcing tools be more effective so we have the right truck for the right load right away, or if it is helping our accounting team be able to reconcile payments quicker because we need to get paid, and make sure that we can help smooth all of that over. I think there are so many different areas that you can tackle, but when you think about what your people do on a day-to-day basis, I want to help them be more effective, because then they'll be able to help our customers and they get a better experience. So a lot of it has to do with where you're going to get the biggest return on your investment. And for us in our business, a lot of it has to do with sourcing and creating a better experience for customers.
So to follow on to that, so do you feel like you can buy these tools in the marketplace, or do you need to build them yourself to have that creative, special MoLo sauce?
Yeah. So as you guys have all seen, there are a ton of phenomenal providers here that do a lot of different things that it would take our business years to develop, right? I think that you have to think about what things can you provide that are truly proprietary that you won't be able to get when you purchase it off the shelf from someone else, and what is someone already very good at that you don't want to pour the resources into or spend the time to develop because you probably don't have the expertise or the resources, the capital to build it. And that's where the intersection is. If it's something that I think that our team can develop and that will give us a better product that enhances the experience that our customers have, it's probably something we should consider building on our own. But there are a lot of providers that know way more about whether it be visibility over freight or reconciling payments, things of that nature, that it probably wouldn't be in our best interest to tackle.
Sure. So Noam, obviously you run a transformational business now, but you also ran a brokerage, and how did you choose what to automate through your days running the business?
Well, I think as Will said, a lot has changed in the last couple of years. And I think the conversation at the conference this year is drastically different than it was last year in terms of technology. So in terms of what to choose to digitize, certainly visibility is an easy one. Tendering between customers and giving them visibility to their freight, back office, freight payment, those are straightforward. I think things like that are non-relationship based are very ripe for automating and can certainly provide a lot of benefits. Digital freight matching opportunities are enormous. And I think that can provide great value to improve productivity. But carrier selection and carrier assignment is at the core of everything we as brokers do. And I think relationships is at the core of everything we do. And if we don't have really good relationships with carriers, I'm not exactly sure what we will provide shippers in the long run. So that data absolutely needs to be brought to improve productivity internally. And there's lots of opportunity to automate the transaction all the way through, but it needs to be thought through carefully and allow for the relationship to be managed properly. On the buy versus build question, I had that decision and I had built the prior two brokerages given technology. And the last brokerage I opened, I decided much of the cat was out of the bag on the TMS side. So I was in a position to be able to buy and give a lot of input in terms of improving Mercury Gate on the truckload side. But I think at the state of technology is now, buying needs to be looked at very closely. I'm obviously have a biased opinion because I'm a technology provider now, but the rate at which technology is moving and the critical nature of integrations and connectivity means that building and maintaining a proprietary base and then trying to figure out all the connections of technology is a challenge. So you better have a real unique competitive advantage in what you are trying to build to justify that ongoing investment.
So Anthony, can you speak from, being as a technology provider, helping clients think about what's the best thing to sort of pick in their ecosystem?
Yeah.
Now you have a particular product, but
I think we're a little bit biased too, and my answer is going to be biased, but there are a lot of different things that, to what Noam was saying, on the AP side, on the track and trace side, there's a lot of different solutions that a lot of vendors have worked hard on. There are solutions that you could build that make more sense if you do it yourself, and it's more specialized the way you do business. But I think the biggest gaps that we see are on the carrier procurement side, because you have to talk to 10,000 carriers, it's something that is not a scalable interaction. And so when we look at problems that should be addressed, where maybe people should have more laser focus on, is how do I focus on things that truly aren't accomplishable by just a person without hiring tons and tons of people, and what kinds of investments will maybe lead to more scalable interactions with carriers. And so I think for the build versus buy piece, I think there's strategic options for both, of course, but as for a third-party vendor like us, we're constantly innovating for each one of our customers, and every single time there is a bit more of insights that we build in terms of understanding of how we might build a more robust carrier profile. More recently, some of our customers wanted us to integrate ELD data, and we've taken those steps to do that. And I think the benefits of working with a third-party provider is that there are a lot of different minds in the room to kind of innovate, pull together ideas, and then also reap the benefits of whatever the third party is providing.
Sure. So the way and I'm not talking about what to do because we covered that, but I think from the build versus buy, there can be good reasons to do both. When you build something, right, you have a unique situation. It might be a unique customer, a unique process. So you do take advantage of maybe some technologies that help you move that part forward. The downside is that you're then pulling that along for a long period of time. You have maintenance of that. You have to continue to factor that in. I call it an unfunded mandate. At that point, Social Security, you're entitled to it forever, and you have to continue to bring it forward. So that's a consideration as you move forward. I did not mention that to submit questions, you can go through the app, which will take you to a web page, or you can submit questions through the digital platform that we digitally transform the question taking. So we've accomplished one digital transformation.
Love it.
All right. So we talked a little bit about what you should focus on internally from a digital transformation, and then we'll talk about what the partners is. I think, ideally we're thinking digital freight matching in some ways, but is it the right load at the right price for the right carrier? So how do you determine those three factors, and how do you determine what to transform first or second or third? So we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So I said a little bit previously, but for us, it's thinking about what things do we know inherently because of the business that we're in. So stuff that I'm confident and we're confident in is the fact that we know how to figure out what's the right truck. or how to build the relationships to assign the right carrier or find the right business to pursue, right? Those are things that we can use our expertise in if we're going to build our own platform, and we can shed a lot of light on it because we're going to be able to get the end product that we want, right? It's what our people need to do their jobs effectively. Things that my team does not know quite as much about would be overall visibility, right? So there are phenomenal partners like that do GPS tracking, or they help integrate with ELDs, things of that nature that we don't really know much about. So it probably isn't as valuable for us to pour a lot of resources into that when we can use what we do know how to do very well, which is build those relationships, figure out the right truck, and get a technology piece that helps our people do that part more effectively, which at the end of the day, as a freight broker, that is the lifeblood of our business. It's finding the right trucks to move the shipment for our customer. And if we do that more effectively, we can take on more business because our people are more efficient. So it's something that we feel confident in being able to do eventually.
Sure. Any thoughts there, Noel?
Specifically on the sourcing side, I guess was the nature of the question, digital freight matching?
Well, it could be either one of the pieces. It could be price. I mean, maybe talk about price sourcing or carrier sourcing.
So there's a lot of talk about automating the price, and I don't, that isn't our focus right now, so I can't really speak to that. But I would say, freight matching has been around since technology in the 80s. So when American Backhaulers was founded, when we first came in, it was clearly a big matching game, right? Broker's job is to match the right truck to the right load. That's what it's always been. So it clearly became a thing that a technology could solve really easily. The available data sets that you had to work on that were very limited. Well, now they are much greater. So the data sets we can incorporate now are certainly ELD data, which is a major transformation in the industry. Load history, loads that you've done before. FMCSA data is a treasure trove of information if evaluated and analyzed properly. Lane preferences that the carriers have expressed. And now you can certainly measure and evaluate every click and link when you send things to them on how they respond. And so all of that thing can build a profile of a carrier and how they respond. And you can, with the way technology is now, you can put intelligence to feed in front of a rep a list of the top 5 carriers that are likely to be interested in this load. Now, I would like to distinguish between owner-operators or very small micro carriers and carriers that actually have their own clients and have network imbalances. So there's a lot of talk, and there's other providers in this space that are focused on the micro carriers and talk about keeping them moving, right? Like you would an owner-operator. To me, that's a fleet solution. That's not really a freight matching solution. You're running that truck like it's your own fleet, and the challenge for us as brokers is can we do that in a way that can allow them to make a living and be sustainable. We are more focused on 5 to 500 truck size, and carriers that actually have books of business, customers of their own that we're trying to balance the network imbalances. So a little different space on that.
Our approach at Parade for how we view how freight brokers can accelerate that relationship with the carriers on that freight matching piece that you're saying, absolutely correct. Incorporating more of these data elements on the app data, all that stuff. But then I think what it boils down to for us is the carrier experience and how easy is it to start doing business with me, getting onboarded very quickly and how that ties in. The minute I onboard a carrier, maybe through my carrier packets, is that a seamless interaction where I can pull in a new carrier, but then also immediately know and understand what that carrier does. Like, it's too many times we're going out to truck stops, DAT, and pulling a new carrier that you have to now take a risk on vetting this carrier. And then maybe they do a great job, maybe they don't. But then after that, what do I do with that? What kind of intelligence do I know about that carrier? And so what steps can you do to automate collection of data about that carrier after you've already got them on the hook once? How do you reel them back in month over month on making sure that carrier is reutilized? And then I think another piece of that is how to book more quickly with that carrier. How easy is it to constantly, now that you know, and that carrier likes that you know everything about them, how do you actually execute on the freight more quickly, and is it a pleasant experience? Are they having to route through 10 different reps that are maybe don't have the familiar relationship? So I think it's a mixture of both process and technology, where those have to map in very closely together so that we're able to execute on the freight more quickly, but that also ties into just being onboarded quickly. I think it's the whole experience of booking with the carrier.
Sure. So I had on here what you should look to partners for, and I think we talked a little bit about that going forward, but maybe we could change that question up a little bit and what you should look, what should a partner have that you look for? Not necessarily a solution, but maybe what do you look for in that partner to continue to help you in this transformation? So I would say, one thing would be is are they continuing to move forward? Is this one product that they're selling, or are they continuing to think how to advance that into the market? Are there other adjacent markets they're looking at? What is the sustainability of this company? As these digital transformation companies come online, you're sharing quite a bit of information with them and then become reliant. What's the long-term goal of that partner, and how you evaluate that? So, do you have some of those partners, and how do you evaluate some of those?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with what do they know about our business that we don't know, or they can apply it better to help us do what we do in a more effective manner. If we think about working with a software provider or technology provider is going to help our reps or help our business get to where we want to be, I want to know that they are the market leader at what they do, or they're doing something that is going to really transform what my business does. It's not really worth it to go through the months and months of integrations and the back and forth of understanding what they do for the return to not be that high if they're not really, really going to transform how we operate day to day.
Sure. Anybody else want to take a shot at that?
Yeah, I would real quick. I think Anthony spoke a little bit about how they have been really responsive to their clients and have been doing development specifically based on client requests. And I think that's a key thing. So it requires that the tech stack of a provider is flexible enough, built on microservices, built on, it's the ability to be flexible in terms of UI based on each use case, but also that they understand your business really well to have the conversation, but are open to building capabilities based on your needs. The truth of the matter is we lay out an initial product, you have an initial vision, and I'm sure Anthony and and the team at Parade did as well. You have initial vision on your product, but you start to get closed into your own world, and it's really the clients that are able to deliver the real enhancements and the real value based on actual operation experience and need, and then a place that you can test it out. So I think you definitely want to choose a provider that understands your business and that is open to transforming the existing technology to meet your needs and to engage in that conversation.
I absolutely agree. And I think my background personally is more from the engineering side, and I think for us to have understood a lot of the freight brokerage problems and live the day-to-day, over half our team is actually former freight brokers, and really helps us communicate, understand the requirements that our customers are asking for, so that there's a long-term longevity of not just carrier procurement, but what other pieces can we tackle. But I think one other thing, this is not really third-party vendors, but I think also a lot of 3PLs and freight brokerages are trying to pick the right TMS right now, and that's also a technology vendor. And I think there's some TMS vendors out there that are more frictionless in the way that they work with providers. I think there's so much innovation happening right now in freight tech, where I know my team, a lot of other teams actually at TIA, are bringing brand new ideas, but we all have to work with your systems. And I think there are some leaders like McLeod that have made it more frictionless to work with. And so as you're assessing, technology vendors like ourselves, don't forget about the base platforms that you're working off of. and how flexible does it allow me to actually engage with all the cool innovation that's happening out in the industry.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. So let's see. We talked a little bit about what has changed to bring us to this point, and we've Noam touched on a couple of those technologies and changes, but maybe we talk more broadly about some of the underlying changes. It could be engineering, it could be just services, but I think obviously the change in technology for the transformation of data between parties in an understandable way has been the catalyst. I mean, if we think about at the very low level, the machine-to-machine communication in a way that's easy to understand and implement quickly, those tools have really been the platform that have allowed us to integrate lots of technology partners into different platforms. And that takes on lots of different applications. So are there some other applications that have changed that you think have sort of transformed your business that you didn't have, say, 3 years ago?
I would say that behind all of this is what the core difference really truly is a more informed customer. So when I think about what we do on the brokerage side, if I walk into a large shipper and I'm not prepared to be able to answer their questions or provide a really, really comprehensive solution, because that's what they're expecting at this point, I'm not going to win that business. And they are no longer just taking things at face value. Information's at your fingertips. You can find it anywhere. They're more tapped in with their providers. They understand how their businesses work at a higher level. So the things that may have worked in the past are no longer the case. It's not how it works. You need to be able to bring something that is truly different. And as we look at our business, if our customers are not happy with the solution we're providing, we don't have a business. So if we're listening to them and understanding what our competition is doing and how we differentiate ourselves and stand out, to me, that's what's really changed, because you've got a more informed customer that understands how it works better. They're expecting visibility. They're expecting transparency. They're expecting to be able to get answers immediately. The long wait times, the challenges with getting answers, it's no longer the case anymore. It's not acceptable. So you have to be able to adapt to that. And that's what brings you to either developing something that provides that or working with a software provider that can help you.
So expectations have changed.
Yep.
That's a really good point. I would add another thing about expectations. The people you're hiring who are young and very technology savvy, if they go in and they see your technology really encumbers their ability to do their job, they get really frustrated really quickly, and they either leave or they gripe about it all day. And I think that's pushing all of us to start to deliver solutions to them that are up to snuff with everything else that they're seeing. And that whole, like I said, the whole conversation and the willingness to spend dollars on technology, all of that's really dramatically changed. Some significant technology changes is, like Robert said, is really all around data, right? AI and the ability to evaluate data and utilize that data to deliver real solutions in real time in a usable format to the people at their desk or in their truck. Critical transformation. And the ELD mandate is huge, right? To have a truck, to have a computer in every truck that's capturing that data, where they're going, where they've been, where they went to lunch. Really incredible data sources. It's tricky, but that's a huge transformation that's allowing us to get to the place that we're going to be going.
Yeah, I think a lot more of a technically inclined, like a lot of the new technical developments only happened 8 years ago. A lot of machine learning algorithms only came out 10 years ago in terms of making it massively available at scale. Some of them were only just coming out when I was in college. And so I think that is a new frontier that has opened up a lot of possibilities. We're talking about NLP, we're talking about AI, and these words have been around for a while, but it really wasn't until 2011 where a lot of these technologies started to take off and matured. Now they're packaged in a way where technology providers like us have figured out how to mash it to a specific use case. And I think there'll be more of that. There'll be a lot more different vendors trying to tackle different solutions within the space. And I'm really excited to see all the things that are going to change.
Yeah, as well. So maybe bringing it into more tactical discussion about trying to talk about the path of getting small and medium-sized carriers and how to get them connected with this digital frontier. You know, is it just tracking? Is it just getting them to use your app? Is it using your website? What is the path to get those carriers connected?
I was hoping that you could tell me. It's tough. As you think about carrier, as a broker, right, they have so many different providers. They have their own customers. They have however many brokers they have set up. You've got the people at the brokerages calling, asking for updates. Like, there's just so much that they have to do to stay up to date with whatever their customer wants, whether it be a direct customer or a broker. So that in itself creates a challenge inherently, because I've got my own technology stuff I want them to do, apps I want them to download, numbers I want them to call. And that's the case across the board for every provider they work with, right? So I think one of the most important things has nothing to do with technology and everything to do with relationships, right? So if I focus on my core carriers that actually work with me, we're partners. It's way easier for me to get them to adhere to the standards that we want, whether it be, and I don't want you to call my after hours number anymore. I really just want you to use my website, because you take 100 shipments with me per month, and we're like actually a really good partner. We work well together. So I think building those strong relationships makes it easier for the technology to get adopted. But also, as we push the pace and the expectations, and those people have to adhere to those standards and they're more uniform, it'll be the case. So it won't be possible to not adhere to them. It's just really challenging. It's something that obviously has taken years, and it's gotten to a better place currently, but I don't think there's one real easy way to do it, because there are always going to be new things that people have to adhere to be able to figure it out. So
I think Will's point is excellent, that if you start to focus on your core carriers and have real relationships, that's going to be the best way to drive them to adopt certain things, and that's that trust level. It is amazing to me, given how advanced visibility technology is, and that it's really all over, how challenging it has been for all of us brokers to get carriers to comply to it. And now they're going to pull a lot of the cell phone tracking capabilities away from us. So I think this touches on what Anthony said before, that the experience we give the carrier is tremendous. The carrier and the driver is tremendously important, and that gets to relationships as well. If you want them to share their data with you, you better respect their privacy. You better respect how important they are, and you better be willing to give some real value back, some reason for them, some benefit for them to share their data with you, other than then that you just have to meet the Walmart requirements on 15-minute updates that some technology providers are guaranteeing without really a way to deliver. So really we got to think about, what do you get for sharing your data, and how can this be a true partnership that we're enabling them to make more money as well as ourselves, and to be more efficient.
Yeah, I think the more trust you have between the carrier and yourselves will enable more data sharing. I think as a technology vendor, we can provide the tools to help connect everything, but if there's no trust between the carrier, they're not going to share their data. And so I think that's going to be just progress of the relationship over time. I think that's one piece of it, on just getting connected. And where we focus a lot of our time at Parade is also on, if they're not connected, how do we just pretend like they're connected? How do we guess what their capacity is, what their lane preferences are? How do we just assume a lot of things about the carrier and just say, oh, I already knew that you do Dallas to Los Angeles, before getting more connected in a real environment? I think that's the ideal use case. But I think there's also a lot that can be done on just understanding trends, understanding predictive capacity, so that you can better plan for working with your carriers.
Well, many of the platforms that the brokers are using are requiring more and more information to, say, leave their TMS. They're providing origin, all load data. They're providing some rate data. They might be providing position information about where the carrier is, carrier name. So there's that concern about privacy. How is my data that's leaving my ecosystem going to be protected? And then there's the privacy of the driver or the carrier. How do we protect those things in contrast with the benefit of having that information? I mean, right, the information that we're providing is key to some of these technologies, but then the trust and the protection of that information once it leaves my ecosystem. So as a provider, as a keeper of the data, you are sending this information maybe outside of your walls. What are you doing to ensure that your partners are good stewards of your data, or what concerns you might have around that?
Yeah, I definitely think there are certainly some concerns with the amount of data that we will collect and then push out to a lot of different providers. For us, it's understanding who are we giving the data to, so who's requesting it and who gets it, and making sure that we actually are working with a provider that does what they say they're going to do from a security standpoint. Some of it has not as much to do with what we've developed, the things that we're going to work on, and more of an understanding of how their technology and business works, so that it doesn't put us in a situation where we have compromised someone's data based on the choice of provider that we chose.
At FreightFriend, we're choosing to address this with what I call the collaborative marketplace based on mutual friendship. So think of a load board with a friendship element layered on top. One side has to invite the other to be a friend, the other side has to accept. What we believe that allows is for a carrier to connect with us, sharing us their data, but have total control over who gets it. So you create the connection because of a relationship that exists, then you don't pay them and they can unfriend you. They steal your load, you can unfriend them. So this is how we see the world in terms of privacy, that it is the carrier's data. And that question about whose data it is, particularly related to the ELD, is a big open question now that everybody's kind of touching around, and everybody's trying to figure out how they get a piece of the pie. In my view, it's the carrier's data. In Europe, that's the law. And they should have control who they get to share it with. But in my vision for the future, all the technologies need to be connected to enable anybody to connect with anybody else, as long as they have control of who they're sharing it with.
For our solution, it's a very different approach, where everything is a walled garden for each one of our customers, where there's isolation of the algorithms, what are we machine learning on, it's just their data. And I think the straightforward answer is you have to build trust with the vendor, but then also really go through the data policy on how that data is being used, and is that acceptable for you. So if you are trying to participate in a co-op sharing ecosystem or in a marketplace, it should be upfront, but then if it's not, then it should be very clear on how the data is being used. I think that's like the clear answer. As an engineer, we have to go through some crazy pains on building the algorithms so that they don't cross-share and they don't overlap, and we saw success hurting from this, and so I think as the engineering perspective comes from that angle, if you just ask the engineers that work at the firms, like, how difficult was it to isolate the data and like what you guys do, like they'll have one hell of a story, because it's very, very difficult to do. And so I think, one, just be upfront with your vendor. The vendor should be upfront with the brokers, but then two, it is an engineering challenge to actually separate out the data.
Yeah, sure. Well, and Noam, you mentioned about the ELD data, and sometimes the carrier shares that, but they may not really even understand what they're sharing. As Facebook, right, we share things, but then we're like, oh, well, maybe I didn't want to share that. How do I go back and take that information back out of the system? So there might be those concerns as well, that I didn't really intend to share that. It was really just a mistake. And so I think those will be challenges that we have to address in the future around that. So that might be one unintentional consequence of digital transformation, is that, hey, I'm sharing information that I didn't intend to share, or I need to go back. What are some other unintended consequences, potentially, of ecosystem of transparency.
I don't know if it would be deemed to be unintentional, but if you think about businesses as they progress across any industry, the people that progress at the clip that the technology is progressing, their businesses stay around. And the ones that don't, do not. So the people that do not get on board with digitally transforming whatever part of their business they're in, unfortunately won't be a part of the industry, as they're not able to keep up with the rest of everyone else, however many years down the line. So I think that will be an unintentional consequence, whether it be acquisitions or people exiting the business because they just can't keep up. And it's something that if you are a new entrant or even someone that is in an advanced or, very mature business, you need to be thinking about ways to make sure that you're keeping your business at the cutting edge, because there are always new people that are going to come out with something that is better or more effective, and that's going to jeopardize your ability to continue to improve. So.
Sure.
Yeah, just like Will said, there's no question that there's job disruption, right? The order entry people, the track and trace people, the back office accounting and billing, they're already getting disrupted, right? And it's our responsibility to position people that are with us, to train them and to move them up a higher level of the ladder, and let their jobs and careers advance to where they are needed. So there's clearly job disruption. I think there's also potentially relationship disruption. If we really think about digital transformation as automating everything, there's certainly potential relationship disruption. So as you start to automate, how do you stay engaged with your customers and engaged with your carriers? You got to think about that. And we've certainly got to be careful about disrupting ourselves out of a brokerage business. And that, I think there's a lot of reasons we wouldn't be if we're doing our jobs the right way, but that has to be thought about. I think those are some unintended consequences that we need to be careful about.
I think for us, we're in our future looking on in terms of problems that we see and what we're enabling is as things become more digital and transactions become more digital, the sophistication of bad actors out there are going to be more complex. And so when the booking process becomes more digital, how do I know the person's truly real? Did they just log in, steal somebody's credentials? And so I think one risk that we're really trying to solve at Parade right now is minimizing that risk on, and I guess this applies to just any process that's getting digitized, even in the AP upload process where you're uploading DOLs. How do you know that's real? I think as things becomes more digital, there's more room for fraud, and that could be one unintended consequences, but that also means that technology vendors just have to step it up and figure out how to combat those rather quickly.
Yeah. So fraud might be an option. Security as another consequence. Is price compression, an issue? Obviously, service levels obviously dictate price a lot of times, but is visibility of price and service and delay and automation, does that reduce the margin because the speciality, diminishes? The special needs that I provide maybe become a few automated. I still provide some services, but those basic services become automated and therefore are not distinguishable from somebody else, become homogeneous. So price compression could be another potential unintended consequence. All right, let's see what we have from the panel, from the audience here. Sorry, from the panel. So, well, we can vote it up. That's pretty cool. All right, so newer, smaller tech providers were great partners, and they sold to a conglomerate, and we were lost in the transition. How can we keep looking for and support new entrants to the market without this disruption? So I think that's part of natural business where new entrants into the market, new technology providers do get gobbled up by larger entities that have more capital and see a potential and want to capitalize on that potential and reward the startup companies with an evaluation. But so how do we look for new entrants in the market without this disruption? I think that's just a natural course of business that's happened over the years. I don't know if there's any other thoughts, a way to support small entrants without the risk of going away.
It has continued to amaze me since all the spin-offs that have come off the spin-offs off the spin-offs. And every time a company acquires one of the large brokerages, immediately a whole lot of more spin-offs get formed. How big our industry and our market is to be able to support so many new entrants and really, really successful. I mean, look at Molo, how quickly they've ramped, how quickly they've scaled. It's a big market. So, a lot of people have made a lot of money a lot of years in this business, and it is very fragmented. I don't see that changing yet. Brad Jacobs came and tried, and his intention was probably to do a roll-up, and it's built a huge business, but we keep opening more brokerages all the time. So,
yeah.
As Parade, I think that was definitely a newer challenge for us, where we've been around for 4 years now, and I mean, year one, it's definitely hard to, establish yourselves in terms of there is clear longevity of the company to do business with. And so when you're working with new firms, that everyone's going to be coming up with new ideas, and they should have I think they're going to be applied in very interesting ways, but the check should be at least some venture capital funding, so that there is at least 18 months of runway. So there's they'll be around, and you're not spending your time on a project that's not going to be around in a year. I think the other part of it, and that question of what if they get rolled up into another firm and then their technologies disappear, that I think that has to be communicated directly with the owners of the company, what their intentions are. Are they just trying to get rolled up into another 3PL, or are they here as just another technology vendor here to stay and looking to innovate new products and constantly build for the industry? So I think that's a tough one.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I think it's gauging how the owners feel about it.
So the next one is, currently, what's the biggest manual bottleneck in your operation today?
That's tough. I would say
Traffic.
Yeah, trucks. So one would be on the accounting side. Like there's so much manual data entry when it comes to moving a shipment, right? Like we get the tender, and then the carrier picks it up, they deliver it, they send us the BOL. If there are accessorials, there's an accessorial receipt. Someone's got to check to make sure it all matches up. You send it to the customer. Something was off in the way that you invoiced it, so you have to re-invoice. There's a lot that goes on there. Anything with, grabbing data for preferred lanes or matching carriers, there's quite a bit of manual labor there, whether it be not knowing where to go to get the data or not having any consistency over it, both of which drastically improve. If you improve them, they drastically improve your business. But there's a lot, very, very heavy.
Sure. When I think about a little bit about this digital transformation, I think about the unrealized benefits of what EDI. EDI has such a bad connotation because it's a flat file, batch processing, but really that's not what it means. It was an electronic data interchange to transact tenders and shipment status, and it's just been so poorly implemented that now we have visibility companies that it's a 214. I mean, what they want is a 214. Why don't we just send them a 214? But it's been so poorly implemented that there was an opportunity to come in and create, new products and new tools to solve that problem. But just as you say, I mean, hey, I've got to get the order entered. That could be done digitally. I got to provide shipment information. That could be done. Invoicing, again, all that could be. It's been digital for a long period of time. It's just hard to implement. It's not a transformation. It's just the implementation gets to be hard. So,
I would just add, I think Will probably was the intended recipient of that question, but because he's the remaining operator on this panel. But I think we at Freight Friend think a lot about the carrier relationship, and that actually a conversation between two people and understanding a carrier's needs like you would vet a client's needs has to be part of the process. There's a tremendous amount of productivity improvement and automation and capture of lots of data to feed information and results. But wherever we go with that, the ability to actually have a conversation with a carrier, understand what their needs are, and incorporate that into the results has to be built into that. And that may require a little bit of manual entry. And to assume that automation and AI can completely replace the intelligence of the human connectivity and experience, I think is not realistic, or is likely to question whether we really have value with our relationships.
Certainly some of the Salesforce automation tools or customer relationship management tools have tried to automate those relationships, right? Again, sort of not starting at A, but trying to start at C down the road, trying to predict what that next best interaction should be to enhance that relationship. So I think that's another area of automation. So how important is the personal element onboarding processes for data entry management security to digitalization? So, I think you can maybe answer some of that, but the personal element that you have to the onboarding of new customers or new carriers in the platform.
The question is
how important is the personal element to digitalization?
I think it's very important. It's the brand of the brokerage. Every brokerage operates in their own geographies. They have different services that they provide to the shippers. So when the carrier is working with the broker, they need to know who they're doing business with and what is going to be that relationship moving forward. Hopefully it's not a one and done. It might be. But if it's not, this is what I'm able to do. These are, forecasting letting them know up front, these are my strong regions. But I think that can only be communicated through a personal relationship, to what I'm saying. I think we'll agree, it starts off with a conversation. And that onboarding is a gradual transition towards, all right, once I know who they are, I trust them. How do we accelerate discovery on what the carrier likes to do through technology? So that front end, I think, does have to be a very personal connection.
I think that's a really interesting question because, as Anthony said before too, that carrier onboarding part is an initial part of your relationship or getting them connected. And we are playing very much with how to we can feed them recommendations of what we think they want based on data that we can capture in the marketplace and the FMCSA and public data. But ultimately you want to get some engagement with them and understanding of what they need. But you got to balance getting them through the process versus actually getting as much information as you can in the onboarding process. And then absolutely branding to your brand is critical. But if you're asking about personalization of the onboarding process, I think about the onboarding providers for compliance who have allowed people to customize that whole process. And I think that's very valuable. But we got to balance the ability to make it easy, simple, and fast and get the data that we want and flexible. So it's a challenge.
I love that question. I would take it even further and not even focus it just on carrier onboarding or whatever it might have been. But I think this is the most relationship-driven business I've ever been a part of. If I think about leads I've pursued, carrier or customer, right? Like if I knew someone there, I was going to get the end result that I wanted a lot faster. It's way easier. I think the companies that do this digital transformation most successfully will not lose the relationship aspect of it. They will just allow the technology to enhance that. And that's how the most successful companies are going to approach it. It's finding ways to essentially empower your people with better technology so they can make their relationships better. And eventually, once the customer's on board or the carrier's on board, some of that's going to be automated, which is great, but you still have to have that strong relationship really to get in the door. Sure. Either way.
All right. So last quick question here. We got just a couple minutes. So how can you tell whether a new hot technology like blockchain needs to be invested in now or wait for it to mature? So going back to the, crossing the chasm here. So are you an early adopter, a late adopter, early majority? How can you tell?
I think more generally, and maybe not blockchain, but just any startup, they're coming in with a new idea. They're trying to come up with some use cases on how to make this better for your business. And at the early stages, if you're not one of those companies that are ready for exploration, has the resources to help out with those kinds of endeavors, I think it's good to just say no. We're not ready for this. We're too early stage for us to play around in this. I think it's really great, but then that would fall into that other sector of folks that, all right, it's proven out the ROI is here. Let's begin to see how the ROI will show for my company. And I guess that goes to my answer for blockchain. I think it's an interesting technology. When somebody proves out the ROI use case, it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd agree with what Anthony is saying. Transportation it's a major industry that connects everybody together. We shouldn't be playing around with tech that we don't understand, and that includes the tech providers. So NLP and AI have been around now for a while and long enough for other industries to prove their viability and how to deliver it back as real usable productive results to other industries. I don't think the transportation place, we talk about we're late to this game or late to that game. We don't want to be first. These transactions are too fast and too critical, and we can shut down a plant and idle 10,000 workers. So, let other industries prove the technology, take a vendor that understands those technologies well and can incorporate what's been done and proven before into our business use cases. So I agree with what Anthony's saying.
No. All right, so we ended up with 5 extra minutes here. Any other thoughts or questions that didn't come in through the technology here? Okay. Well, thank you so much for attending. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.